It is contemptible, yes. Despicable, you bet. Shameful, immoral, reprehensible, wrong. Check, 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 and check. But while there are 1,000 ways to describe the Trump administration's approach to handling the Jeffrey Epstein crisis today, the one we'll start off with this afternoon is instructive, because one can learn a lot about the totally upside down and backward dynamic of the ongoing spiraling debacle and crisis simply by observing who Team Trump is taking great care to accommodate, who they're treating with care and public displays of respect and courtesy. That group evidently does not include the most essential humans, the most essential figures of the entire saga, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his longtime girlfriend and accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. Responding to reports today that the Epstein matter will be among the topics of discussion at a strategy session tonight that features VP J.D. Vance, Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, AG Pam Bondi, and her deputy Todd Blanche. The family of Virginia Giuffre released a statement that reads in part, quote, "Missing from this group is, of course, any survivor of the vicious crimes of convicted perjurer and sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Their voices must be heard above all. We also call upon the House subcommittee to invite survivors to testify. As Virginia Roberts Giuffre's siblings, we offer to represent her in her stead, and we hope the administration takes our call to action seriously. Any information that may be released by the government should take into account the survivors who wish to remain anonymous for their safety and well-being. They should be consulted first. We reiterate that Ghislaine Maxwell should have remained in a maximum security prison and does not deserve the luxuries currently afforded her." Now, that last part of the statement from Giuffre's family is essential to an informed observation of the Trump administration's very public actions, because the Washington Post has stunning new details today on Ghislaine Maxwell's new accommodations. They follow her cooperation with the Justice Department at the Bryan Federal Prison Camp, a minimum security facility in Texas that resembles a college campus much more than what you would think a prison looks like. From that piece, quote, "Someone gave special preference to Maxwell that, to my knowledge, no other inmate currently in the Federal Bureau of Prisons has received." That's according to Robert Hood, a former warden of the Florence Supermax prison in Colorado, home to some of the world's most notorious criminals, and on the opposite end of the security spectrum from Bryan. Quote, "It is a country club," Hood said, of the camp about 100 miles northwest of Houston. "Inmates, if they have a sex offense, are not going to a place like that, period. It is truly unheard of," end quote. That alone, enough to make one's blood boil, just reading those quotes, but to actually hear one of Jeffrey Epstein's accusers address Maxwell's recent special treatment is something else entirely. So watch.
How does that make you feel?
Obviously not really good. Sorry. I'm extremely upset. I'm angry. I'm disgusted. To be denied your innocence, denied your justice, and then to have your healing taken away from you without any consent, it really feels like a part of me is dying inside. Ghislaine Maxwell doesn't deserve any mercy. She doesn't deserve any grace. She deserves nothing. To be clear, Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for her counts of child exploitation and trafficking. Why would anybody give somebody like her, who is a monster and a liar, a time of day to explain anything? She doesn't know anything, and if she did, she would have already had the opportunity to speak. That opportunity has passed.
That is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. New York Times Justice Department reporter Glenn Thrush is here. Also joining us, MSNBC senior political analyst Alex Wagner is here. And joining us, host of the Bulwark podcast, MSNBC political analyst Tim Miller is here as well. Glenn Thrush, what is our current understanding or knowledge, or what has been confirmed and reported out about the sequence of events between Todd Blanche's meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell and a waiver being granted so that Ghislaine Maxwell moves to this prison being described by Mr. Hood as a place that is, quote, unheard of for convicted sex offenders?
Well, it seems to have been sequential. We know that there's correlation. We don't know if there's causation, but one thing happened and then the next thing happened a couple of days later. I've covered BOP for a really long time. You know, Maxwell was not in a particularly restrictive facility in the first place. And we've heard from some of our reporting that she was doing fairly well, wasn't having any really physical issues, no disciplinary problems behind bars. This is a pretty remarkable development. We too have heard the same thing, that this is not a common step down. This is for people who are typically quote unquote not victimless crimes, but white collar criminals who've done paper crimes. And I should just tell you, in general, the Bureau of Prisons, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, is a wreck right now. The administration has proposed massive cuts to the Bureau of Prisons, and you know, I get a lot of incoming from the families of prisoners about conditions all the time. I probably get 3 or 4 emails a week from lawyers and the families of prisoners complaining about rat infestation, terrible food, awful conditions, short staffing at prisons. So to be given an opportunity to go to one of the crown jewels of the system does raise a lot of questions. The president, and I think Blanche himself, has said that they did not necessarily order this, but they have broad latitude to make these determinations, and clearly it happened after the meeting.
What, Glenn Thrush, is your understanding of the purpose of this strategy session tonight and the discussion about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell?
Beats me. You know, again, I'm just totally stumped. I think the people that I've spoken to today in both the White House and the Justice Department are completely flummoxed. They don't know, A, they don't know why this thing would happen in the first place, and B, why anyone would publicize it. If, you know, this is the kind of meeting you might want to hear about after the fact. The fact that someone leaked information about it coming out to CNN really defeats the purpose, and now we're hearing mixed messages. I don't even know if it's going to happen. My general sense was that it was intended by Vance as a way to calm down what is a pretty agitated, finger-pointing relationship between the Bureau, the FBI, and the Justice Department. Patel and Bondi claimed to get along really, really well. There's been a lot of tension. Kash Patel's coming back from a 10-day to 2-week trip that included a stop-off in New Zealand, so he was out of Dodge when the Epstein was hitting the fan, which did not go unnoticed in the Department of Justice. But Bondi's real beef is with Dan Bongino, who literally, at this meeting, I guess it's about a month ago, in Susie Wiles' presence, made it very clear that he did not like Bondi, and subsequently that she ought to resign as of our reporting. Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, is an interesting character in this as well. She has been in the past close to Bondi, and she really wasn't happy with the way that Bongino spoke to her or to Bondi. So I presume that this was a kind of a smoking of the peace pipe meeting, but look, I can't figure out what their PR strategy is on this. There doesn't seem to be one. It just seems to be a lack of impulse control. Like, why would you publicize a meeting about a story you want to go away? They just keep, from my perspective as somebody who's covered White Houses and other departments of justice, when you've got a story that is really a sinkhole, you try not to feed that. Again, it just, I think, speaks to the fact that this is kind of an, you know, for all of the claims that a lot of folks in the White House make about this being a more disciplined operation the second time around, it has kind of devolved, particularly with the Epstein thing, which has put a lot of pressure on everybody, into an every man and woman for themselves scenario.
I took a look, Glenn Thrush, at the, I'm sorry to seem to pick on you, Glenn, but I just want to get a couple of facts into the record to inform our discussion. I looked at some of the pardons, and They include men convicted of seditious conspiracy. They include fraudsters. They don't include any other sex offenders. So I wonder if you are aware of any, and to be clear, Trump has not pardoned Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right.
There is this sequence where Todd Blanche visits her, and then within days a waiver is granted and she's moved to this prison that resembles a college campus. Is there any precedent where Donald Trump has ever pardoned a convicted child sex trafficker or convicted sex criminal?
I don't believe so, but I will say there's been a lot of recidivism among the January 6th crowd. And Nicole, I'm really glad that you pointed that out, because so much water has been under the bridge that we don't even have a bridge anymore, right?
Right.
But the very first thing that Donald Trump did was this mass pardon of the J6ers, which, by the way, I should point out, Pam Bondi, during her confirmation hearing, said would never happen, okay? So you have a scenario here in which he gave a blanket clemency to people who supported him, and it's my understanding from reporting we've done and other people have done, maybe you guys know better than me, that there have been recidivism. I think there's been at least one or two instances of domestic violence, and I think we also wrote a couple of weeks ago some coverage about somebody been pardoned during the first term who also had significant issues. So I don't think it's anyone who has been convicted of that particular crime, but I think it's folks who have been either granted clemency or pardons who have then committed other crimes once they've gotten off the hook.